Can you believe I never thought I'd see the day where you can buy movie tickets on Roblox, let alone digital luxury cars or even physical items? Well, if you told Nick Hill, the co-founder of Sawhorse Productions, that he would be helping brands create immersive experiences on Roblox 13 years ago, he probably would have laughed. In this episode, we'll deep dive into the secrets he uses to launch these amazing brand activations with iconic brands like Warner Bros, Lamborghini, Fenty, and Walmart. We'll also unfold the untold stories, but before we do that, let's find out what Sawhorse Production actually does.
Awesome. Yeah, so my name is Nick Hill. I'm co-founder and head of the interactive department at Sawhorse. I started as a filmmaker, so I'm coming from the creative side. And at Sawhorse, we've been making branded content for studios, agencies, and brands for like the past 13 years. And traditionally, we've been creating video content for them. So like short format stuff that lives on social platforms and tells brand stories, which has been really fun and great. But during the pandemic, we got into the interactive space, mainly on Roblox. So it's really still like working with those same clients, the brand studios, agencies, but we are now telling their story in a 3D immersive interactive way. So instead of just video, now it's coming to life and it's ongoing, it's persistent. So it's just been super exciting. And, you know, like half our teams are from the traditional film world. So art directors, creative directors, visual effects artists, and the other half are from the gaming community. So native Roblox devs, 3D artists, and we kind of like mash those teams together and we build unique content.
Nick was actually very nervous to pivot to Roblox. He had never done any software, he never created any games, he was heavily focused on video production. But I'm wondering, what was our first initial invoice like from a client? Who was the client?
No, not at all. Like I was really nervous about the opportunity, to be honest, because I didn't know anything about software or software development, game creation. All we knew was physical production, video production, all of that. So it was a little nerve-wracking when we first got in, but once I was in, I realized that there are a lot of similarities. It's essentially just creative project management and delivery. So instead of just making like video stories, now you're making interactive stories. There is a lot of crossover. Obviously, there's some new skill sets that we need to become proficient in. But outside of that, the big picture is the same. You're telling a story for a brand, and you're bringing it to life, and you're connecting with audiences. So it's just a different version of that. And the only other thing I would add is the reason why this makes sense to me is because I grew up as a gamer. So I remember getting the first Nintendo Entertainment System, the old school NES, had the first one. I loved games, played games my whole life off and on. But when I was kind of getting serious about my professional career, there were no UGC gaming platforms. So it was like, if you were going to get into gaming, you had to be pretty serious about it, go work for game studios and kind of, really like pick that lane. For me, I chose the film lane and, kind of got into all that, really got excited about the sort of democratization of film and video, like the YouTube days, the social media days, UGC content, essentially. Wow. Yeah. So, that's awesome. Yeah, I got into that. But, there was no UGC gaming opportunities at that time, maybe like small mod communities and whatnot, but there were no big UGC gaming platforms like Roblox. So it's that's the reason why I didn't move in that direction. But now they're here, and I think because of my gaming background, it's one of the reasons why I gravitated toward it. Yeah, I would say a little nerve-wracking, exciting, and also nerve-wracking. The first official project we did was for Aloe, the clothing company. So, we kind of closed that deal. We had no experience on the platform. We had not released anything officially. We were doing an R&D project in the background with our team, and we hired some outside people, and we were kind of in an R&D phase. But we got the opportunity to pitch to Aloe, and they said yes. And it had a very fast timeline. So the pressure was on. I think we had like 6 or 7 weeks to build it. And this is just right around the holidays in December. So our office was closing, and we essentially, we're going into the break knowing that when we come back the first week of January, we only have a few weeks to make this entire experience on Roblox and then ship it. And it was attached to the New York Fashion Week in February when it was tied to the launch. So there wasn't any flexibility on the timeline. It had to come out during that time because there was a bunch of press attached to it. So
Makes sense.
yeah, we had to spin up extremely fast. We had to figure out how to work as a team. Had to figure out how to get reviews in with the client to make sure that they were happy with the progress. Thankfully, they're a fantastic client, and they made things easy from that perspective. But yeah, it was a quick trial by fire, sink or swim situation, and we delivered, and it performed extremely well, and it opened up a lot of doors, and it kind of gave us some recognition and notoriety in the community, and kind of really kind of jump started our career into interactive.
It's funny. Everyone screams, you should be on Roblox, but nobody pays attention to the other platforms like Zepeto, Minecraft, and Fortnite. Well, they do, but not to the extent of Roblox. So I decided to ask Nick, what are some common objections he faces with brands, and what are they often asking him? And why should brands build on Roblox compared to other platforms?
Yeah, well, I think it's a new space in general for everybody, and especially marketing teams. I think the majority of the marketing teams at brands that I talk to, they all know what Roblox is. Most of their kids are playing Roblox, so that's already established. I think in general, almost every brand is interested and thinks they should probably be there, but they're not really sure how and why. And I think that that's a normal reaction. And unfortunately, there is no blueprint for brands to follow because it is so new. It's not like how social media and Web 2 is so established now. It's like there's so many books that have been written about it. There's like so many experts, people, full-time social teams within these marketing teams. Yeah. So they get it. There's nothing, we haven't established that yet for UGC gaming. But I would say that most of the marketing teams I talk to want to be there. They just don't know how. So it's really, the job of Sawhorse as an agency to work with them, educate them on the space, on platforms like Roblox and Fortnite and others, Minecraft, and basically explain the pros and the cons and the reasons why you would be on all these different platforms. And then trying to figure out what their goals are, what do they want to achieve for them? Yeah. What does good look like? They want to reach this certain demographic. They want to make sure they get this much engagement, all these little details. Then we go back and we kind of work backwards from those goals and sort of budget ranges, and we create unique blueprints, unique designs of experiences. We get them to sign off. Then we go into production.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And, why would a brand want to do a brand activation in Roblox compared to, there's multiple platforms. There's a Sandbox, there's Fortnite, but why Roblox?
Yeah, great question. So, yeah, like you said, there's tons of different platforms that they can activate on. I think Roblox is the best for several reasons. I think the first would be that it's the largest. I think it's something like over 76 million daily active users. So on a global scale, that's bigger than all the other ones. It's bigger than Minecraft. It's bigger than Fortnite. It's bigger than all of them. The other thing I love about it is that the demographics are split, So it's, I think about half the platform is under 13 and the other half is over 13. So it's becoming a broader audience for Gen Z, Gen A. And also from another demographic fact that's interesting is it's almost 50-50 male and female. So it's really it's just all the young people. If you want to reach them, they are there, which is important because brands need to market to younger generations so that they can stay relevant. And, young people will become the people with disposable income, and they'll become the clients and customers of tomorrow. So that's another reason. And I think the last reason I would say is that it's a very mature platform because it's very old. I don't think people realize this, but Roblox is like almost 15 years old or so. And it started as a UGC gaming platform. That's very different than a lot of these other platforms. For instance, like Fortnite, who started as a battle royale game and then has now recently changed to a UGC platform. But it doesn't have the UGC culture that a platform like Roblox does. So for 15 years, on the first day that it launched, it basically was like, this is an open platform. And with this mentality of like, come here, build, play, and share. So people were making these weird games that, from day one. So it has this massive dev community, and like the mentality of the users there, when they play, they're not stepping into like a AAA title, or they're not stepping into like one specific game type they love. They're stepping into like a metaverse, which essentially is an open platform that's persistent with tons of different worlds. There's interoperability across it. You can go there and do whatever you want to do. You can go play a racing game. You can play a strategy game. You can go to a game that doesn't even have a game mechanic. It's just a place to hang out and talk to your friends and be social. So, and because it's the tool is so old, it's very advanced and it's robust. Meaning, if you want to create something and you have a vision in your head, the tool is powerful enough to execute on that vision. Versus a lot of these other platforms, they're younger, they're newer, the tools aren't as advanced. So it's like you'll have a vision in your head and you go to build it on one of these other platforms and you hit walls very quickly. You're like, oh no, it can't do that. It can't do that. It doesn't do this. Or look at like UGC. If you want to create wearables and share them with the community, Roblox's UGC kind of ecosystem is massive, and the ability to create layered clothing and then share that with other people and sell that in the marketplace, and the interoperability there is way more advanced than that of several other platforms. So those are just some high level reasons why Roblox continues to kind of pop up in everyone's conversation on why they would activate there versus other places.
Yeah, you made some very interesting points there. We'll get back to UGC, right? But you mentioned there Roblox has been around for 15 years. So what's your opinion on the current landscape, just in terms of brand activations?
Yeah, so brands have been around for a while on Roblox. It's not a new thing. What I like is that there seems to be continued demand for brands to be there, which is a good indicator that something's working and then it's continuing to evolve. I think in the early days, especially around the pandemic, if a brand were to activate on Roblox, they got a ton of press and they didn't have to do anything. Like they could literally make a really bad experience and they would be like, oh, this brand is on Roblox. Let's go write about it in the New York Times, and like all this stuff and blast it out. That's like played out at this point. There's so many brands that have activated there. You're only going to get that press if you do something innovative. So it's like, oh, this brand came to the platform. They did this element that's never been done before. They're pushing the industry forward. So you can still get press, but you just have to kind of stand out a little bit. I think also the amount of engagement that brands are seeing is extremely high, and that continues to be consistent, which is amazing. Like when you do an activation and you do it properly, you're getting millions of visits, tons of engagement time, a massive amount of impressions. A lot of the users there record videos of their experience. They post that on other platforms outside of Roblox, and you get a massive amount of additional impressions that way. So the engagement and the value and the time continues to be very high. So I think that's exciting. But I think a lot of brands are kind of they're getting more curious and they're trying to figure out what is the point of doing this and what is the value. And I think that they're trying to, identify what that is now. Is it enough just from a brand marketing standpoint to get a ton of engagement and, people excited and educated about the brand? Or do we need to go into monetization? Some brands are looking at it as like, well, how can I make money here? Mm-hmm. And that can be challenging, but that is another possible goal that they're looking at. And then there's this other interesting point of versus like a pop-up activation versus a persistent experience. So a lot of brands are looking at this like, oh, I'm going to do my Roblox thing. And so the way that they're thinking about it is like, oh, I'm just going to do this one pop-up and make a big splash and get all this engagement. And then I don't know what to do. I'm just going to leave. Or I'm going to stop it. I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to sunset it. Yeah. Alternatively, some brands are looking at it like, oh no, this is a persistent platform. Just the same way we have persistent footprint on social platforms like TikTok and Instagram, and we continue to update that and foster it and build that community and reach them. Some brands are looking at that on Roblox to be like, oh, I'm going to spin up my owned experience and I'm going to continue to update it every week or every month, and I'm going to continue to connect with the audience there and then build that over time. Mm-hmm. I think it's a lot easier for brands to do the pop-up. It's easier for them to wrap their heads around. But I think really forward-leaning brands like Walmart and some others, and Elf, they see the vision and they see the value from a long standpoint. And so they're trying to figure out how can we continue to show up there and be successful and reach this audience and grow with them, as opposed to just being temporary.
Myself and Nick, in this next part of the podcast, we get into a debate. You must be thinking, about what? Well, we get into a debate about what is better for brands to do on Roblox, pop-up stores or persistent experiences. And I also asked Nick, is it cost efficient for brands to enter or integrate into already existing games? So let's find out.
That's a great point. And I think the answer is, at the end of the day, the marketing teams, they have to own these responsibilities and these experiences. And it requires, from an update standpoint, it requires dedication. And a lot of these teams, these marketing teams, I've noticed they're not ready to dedicate that. They don't have often, there's a few examples, like Gucci's a great example. They have dedicated Metaverse and gaming team on their marketing team. So they know how to activate in all these platforms. They show up consistently and, they do awesome work. But I would say almost every other brand, they don't have that. They have traditional marketing teams, CMO, maybe they have a couple people that handle their social, but they don't have anyone managing gaming. So if you think about it, yeah, you can build your persistent world, but if you don't have someone who's dedicated to that and fostering that community and continuing to update and engage and build, it's also like it's an innovation space. So you have to learn, you have to test, you have to learn, you have to connect. It's effort, So I think a lot of brands, they just haven't, put in that long-term commitment within their teams. Yes. So I would say, yes, I agree with you. In theory, it's great to have a persistent experience, but if you don't have the dedication or someone to manage it, it's going to die on the vine. It's going to become a ghost town, and then that's a bad look. So I think in the interim, where we are in the timeline of UGC gaming and brands, I think it's actually not a bad idea for a brand to do a big activation, get a ton of engagement, show up in a cool way, connect with the community. They learn a lot from that, and they educate themselves. And then you can sunset it, and then you can think about, well, what are we doing here? And then they reform out their strategy as they go.
Speaking of brand activations right here, what makes a good brand activation then?
Great question. I think the bottom line is a great activation is giving the players what they want, and it's respecting the players. A bad activation is a brand coming in and thinking that they're awesome, and they're not listening to the community, and they show up in a way that they think is cool. The community does not think it's cool. They're like, this is insulting. This is boring. I don't want to go here. Why am I here? What a waste of time. What a waste of money. This is lame. And sometimes it can have the opposite effect where everyone's just like flaming on that brand. Oh, look, they don't understand the community. They showed up here. This is super lame. And they make all these memes and it's like a joke on the platform. You don't want that. That's like the opposite. What makes a good experience is when you actually listen to the community and you understand the platform and you figure out how to bring your brand there in an organic way that offers real value to the users. So the users there are like, okay, cool. I like to do this type of game, or I really love this type of like UGC clothing or items. Like this brand figured out that they know how to talk to me, you know, and if I participate in what they built, they're also going to reward me with something that I can walk away with. And then they have a great reaction to that experience. They walk away thinking, wow, that brand's cool. They met me where I'm at. They gave me something. Maybe in the real world, I might buy their stuff. I don't know. But I think that brand's pretty cool. You know, that's a great activation in my opinion. Yeah, well, the reality is both can be expensive. So I would say like one isn't necessarily cheaper than the other. Because when you do an integration into a really popular game, you have to basically pay like a rental fee to get in there. And if they have a ton of traffic, that's extremely valuable. So they're charging for that. So I wouldn't say like one is cheaper than the other, but I would say that there's pros and cons. When you make your own experience from scratch, you have to market it. Otherwise, a lot of people don't even know that it's there. So you have to spend money on the creation of what that experience is. Then you have to spend money on marketing to drive people into what you built. So you really have to be looking at it from like, oh, there's a development thing that we're doing, and there's also a marketing thing that we're doing. It's almost like marketing your marketing, which is a lot for marketers to have to think about. But if you do it properly, you have a ton of success. Alternatively, to your point, you can do an integration, which, you know, the pros and cons. The pro is you go into someone else's game, you leverage all of their pre-existing traffic. You don't need to do any marketing. You just do, it's a one and done. Pay the money, make something cool, lives inside there, and you already get tons of engagement just by default because you're there. The cons are you can't control everything that you want because you're stepping into someone else's game. So there's limitations on what can be built and what can function. That's one negative. Another negative is it's temporary. And you know, they're going to charge you basically like on a per week basis or a per day basis to be in there. So if you're having a lot of success and it's cool and you're at the end of your 3-week run, they're like, cool, we can keep it up, but here's a massive bill because you're renting this. So you need to spin it down or pay us. And then, the other argument I would say is integrations need to be done very well to be successful. So to give you an example is like, you could build a pop-up experience. Maybe it's like a store, like a shopping store or something. And you can put that in a racing game, but you have tons of concurrent users that are in the racing game. They might look at the store and be like, I don't want that store. I'm here to race, right? So it doesn't matter. You paid the money, you got the impression, but you didn't get the deep engagement. A better example would be like a car company doing an integration into that game. And the way they integrated is they put their car inside the game mechanics. So, you know, users could choose to race that car. So now you're getting deep engagement. That's a great integration example.
If you really think about it, every brand has a social media team. I asked Nick, will every brand need a Metaverse team?
100%. I think I'm extremely bullish on it. I think if you're looking into the future and you want to get ahead of the curve, you want to skate to where the puck is at or where it's going, right? And I feel like there's a few interesting stats. The majority of the people in the world are gamers. They consider themselves gamers. And they understand interactivity. And I'm not talking about like hardcore online AAA gaming. I'm just talking about gaming in general. Look at mobile gaming. You know, there's so many older people that are playing some kind of game. So as far as like interactivity, and gamification, this is an element that the majority of the world understands and will be spending time in. If you think about traditional, linear media that is not interactive, there's still a great place for that. But I think younger generations are getting less interested in that, like film and TV, which is, there's always going to have its place and it's always special. I'm not knocking it. I just feel like younger generations are kind of, they're born with like a device in their hand. They're already used to, from social media, interacting from day one. Oh, I watched something, I commented on it. I made my own video, I replied to it. Interactivity. Gamification. It's like, I don't want to sit down and watch something for 30 minutes. I want to control it. I want to be running around and I want to be co-creating, or I want to be like, in control of my own destiny. Gamification. So brands, if they're smart, they should be looking at the amount of engagement of where people are and where they're choosing to spend their time. I think in the future, we're going to have more of that interactive consumption of people's time. So I would say you need to be there and you need to show up organically, and making traditional ads and just like running them like on TV or the radio. It's this type of marketing is not the same. It's like, sure, you can throw up a billboard in someone's game, and that's fine. Sometimes it kind of works. But I think that there's like much more valuable marketing to be had if you're creating within these experiences and offering value to the users there.
KPIs, the things we all love and want to measure. I asked Nick, what type of KPIs do you think brands should be tracking when doing a brand activation?
Yeah, so I think the first KPI is visits. Are a lot of people going to go there and see what you did? That's the first thing. Like, if you market that correctly, you can get millions of people going to your experience. So that's a first KPI. Another is like time spent. So you don't want to be a situation where you've marketed and you've funneled like 1 million people in, but they spawn in there and they're like, what is this? And they leave immediately. That's not very valuable. So like, dwell time is important. If you design a good experience that has a core loop and, engagement and reasons for users to actually engage there and do stuff, then you should be seeing more engagement time. So anywhere from like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, like somewhere in that range. If you kind of go more sort of like 5, 10, that's more of like the branded branded content time spent average. So time spent is kind of important, because I think that's where a lot of the value comes from. Just being on the platform and having someone see something is like kind of valuable. That's an impression. But having a user spend 10, 20 minutes, come back 3 times, and really engage with the product, that's huge value in my opinion, because that user really understands the brand, understands the vibe, starts to become like a fan. So that's really important. And then I think the last goal could be like monetization. Do you are you making money there? Is it helping to support the costs of the experience, or are you turning a profit and actually making something? That's there'll be more of that in the future, I think. And then I think just to tack on one more, which is interesting, is like now we there's ways of like driving people off platform and into the brand's website or the brand's campaigns externally, or the loyalty programs. Like really figuring out like, how do we take this great audience that you've sort of activated on the platform, and how do we get them off platform so they can start buying stuff, engaging with the brand in the real world, et cetera, or joining that loyalty program. So we've done this with like Hilton and Lamborghini. We've found ways to like connect users off platform. And then I guess just to go back to the monetization thing, like Sawhorse was the first company to work with Walmart to bring e-com to the Roblox platform. So we were actually able to sell real world items that came with digital items within an experience. This was done in a test and learn capacity. So it wasn't, it's not available to everybody, but it performed really well. And I think there'll be more e-com opportunities coming to the platform for all brands in the future.
Sawhorse has done a few digital brand activations. One being with Walmart, where you're able to buy digital items and physical items through Roblox. Two being with Warner Bros, where you're able to buy cinema tickets through Roblox and actually watch the film in real life. Now, Nick is probably one of the best people in the world to talk to about this, so I wanted to get his thoughts on where Phygital is going.
I think right now it's very early days for Phygital items and digital items as well. But the trend is younger people are spending way more time in these UGC platforms, more time than they're spending on social. There's been a lot of studies that talk about how important digital identity is for young people, you know, the way they represent themselves, you know, they change their outfits constantly. You know, there's been studies that say that they care as much or more about what their digital avatar looks like than what they look like in the real world. It's a weird stat. I don't know if I believe it, but I've seen it in several studies, which is interesting. I think that it's early days right now. Like, you look at Roblox and you're like, oh, it looks like a kid's platform, or like the graphics look kind of silly. But I think that digital clothing is going to have a massive impact on our lives in the next, 10, 15, 20 years, where if you're a clothing brand, I think you need to be thinking about that space. I think especially if you look at like augmented reality technology, how we're going to be able to, see things that aren't there in the real world. I think that there's within a year or two, we're probably going to have augmented reality capability in our sunglasses. So, imagine from a fashion standpoint, what you can layer on to clothing and allow people to see that's layered onto you. I think clothing brands have to take that seriously. And so, I agree. I think it definitely is a new revenue stream. And I think that clothing brands should be testing and learning now, like getting into platforms like Roblox and others to connect with those communities, figure out what they want, figure out how the economies work and how the marketplaces work, and, just slowly stay in those conversations. So when we see these massive shifts, those brands are already there. You don't want to like miss the boat and be like, okay, everyone loves digital clothing. How do I jump in here and sell mine? It's like, it's going to be kind of late. These new users are going to have this brand affinity with certain brands that they've been, wearing and interacting with for the past like 10 years. It's going to be hard for you to just to pop up and be cool in that scenario.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It's, I look at Adidas, right? Since we're talking about digitals, right? I look at Adidas, and they've released about 2,400 items, compared to like most of the other brands, where some of the other brands released 200 to 300 pieces of UGC. From looking at that, it kind of indicates that Adidas looks at this as a standalone business compared to just it being a part of a brand activation. What are your opinions on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think monetization, it seems, is really important to that brand. And I think that they are doing a good job of learning the market, and learning the marketplace and the ecosystem, and trying to really crack the code on like how do you create digital wearables on these platforms and see success. I think they're trying some different strategies there.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting. Even at your last point, you mentioned, I'll be honest, I'm Gen Z myself, right? Maybe it might not be on Roblox that I usually care about how I look on Roblox, but maybe when it comes to GTA or Fortnite back in the past, I used to care a lot because when you are in the game, right, you kind of, if you wear like the default skin, you just look like an amateur, right? So
right, you can't show up like a noob. Like, you got to at least have something. Otherwise, it's like, this person never played this game. This person is like whack.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. So it's definitely interesting. But yeah, just in terms of digitals, once again, sorry for just going having this point, right? But
you look good.
Where do you see this going? Do you see more brand activations like Walmart did, like you did with Walmart, where you can buy physical items in the digital world, or do you see something else happening?
Honestly, I don't know. I think that digital is cool because if you really love a jacket and you're going to spend money on it in the real world and you want to also wear it when you play Fortnite or something, in theory, it'd be great to have that option. I just love the way this jacket looks. I want to show my friends on Fortnite the jacket. It's cool. I was able to do the digital thing. I'm glad I did it. I think that there's definitely a use case for that.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but on the flip side, I think that one of the things that's nice about the metaverse platforms, UGC gaming platforms, is that you're not confined to any reality. So you can show up and represent yourself in totally different and unique ways that you can't do in the real world. So I think that there's also a different opportunity for those clothing brands and designers to make fantastical, insane stuff and make that only available on UGC platforms, and then allow those users to really kind of like be creative and push the envelope on fashion. They can't do in the real world. So, and there's, not necessarily a physical connection with that. I guess the only physical connection I could see is like, oh, I do love the jacket in the real world. I have the same jacket when I go into Fortnite, but it's on fire, and the fire, it's designed in a way that's like, in line with that brand, which is interesting.
In 2023, we saw more than 300 brand activations happen on Roblox alone. In 2024, we'll see more than 500 plus brand activations happen. I wanted to hear Nick's thoughts on where brand activations are heading, and if we'll see more in 2025.
That's a great question. I don't see that trend slowing down. I just see it continuing to ramp up. So I would say, maybe increasing by 50% or possibly doubling in the next year of brand activations. I can see that happening. It doesn't seem like demand is slowing down. I also think that I'd like to see the industry stabilize a little bit as far as like understanding and how to quantify value of these activations. Like what is a visit worth? What is like 10 minutes of engagement time worth? Trying to like figure out more consistent way of like measuring success and quantifying that and creating costs that are associated with it. Like I think that we'll see more of that. I think these platforms will continue to grow, Fortnite, Minecraft, Roblox, and then some of the other up and coming platforms like Zepeto and Rec Room. They're just going to get bigger. More and more users are going to come and they're going to spend more and more time there. So I think that there's going to be more demand from brands to kind of reach those people and speak to them in a language they understand. So you're going to see more brand activations. Also, I think that I'd like to figure out more monetization options and more e-com opportunities, and also more loyalty program and IRL connections for these activations. So, figuring out additional ways to drive value for the brands. We're already seeing it in like these test and learn modes, but I think it's going to be more standardized and it's going to be more consistent on most of these activations.
Sawhorse collaborated with NBCU to release a Kung Fu Panda brand activation. So I wanted to get Nick's thoughts on what it was like to create a brand activation for such a beloved IP like Kung Fu Panda. And I also wanted to get his takes on the opportunity at hand for entertainment companies and film studios to enter Roblox to promote their films and TV shows.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was a great opportunity. Worked with NBCU. They're a fantastic team over there. And we had a ton of success with that project. I mean, it's nice when you work with a brand or an IP that the community already knows because you're going to be welcomed. So obviously everyone knew Kung Fu Panda. We built an experience that was really engaging and rewarding for the users that they really valued. I just loved that experience. I loved the performance. I think it got something like 17 million visits like within 3 weeks. With long engagement times, like it was one of those experiences that got like on the top 10 or top 20 list of experiences on the platform out of like a million experiences or whatever, which most brand activations don't get anywhere close to that. Most of the top performing games are the best games on the platform built by the best devs. So getting on that list was kind of like a wow moment for us. But I would just say one interesting fact, the biggest takeaway from that was learning about the entertainment vertical and the way they see the Roblox platform as a marketing tool for them and how important it is. So for animated films that have the target audiences like younger kids, they were telling me that they can't reach those kids on TV because kids aren't watching TV anymore. So like playing the trailer for the film, on commercial breaks on TV doesn't work. So you're not reaching the kids there. They're also not reaching the kids on social platforms because they're too young to have an account. I think, like a lot of these are like 13 plus to have an account on, say, TikTok or YouTube, right? So they're not quite old enough to have an account. They're not really spending their time scrolling yet on those social platforms. So the only place they can reach them at mass scale is Roblox as a location, as a channel. So they're spending their resources, their marketing resources on building out these immersive experiences that are basically like immersive trailers, immersive advertisements for these films. And it's having massive impact. Like I said earlier, it's like we got something like 16, 17 million visits within those 3 weeks. I mean, that translates to young people and demand wanting to go into the movie theaters and watch these movies. And there was an article that was written in Variety recently that I got quoted in. We were just talking about how that dramatically moves the needle. And you can see there's a study done about like, films, animated films and how they're performing. So Kung Fu Panda and Despicable Me 4 were some of the top performing movies at the box office, animated films. Both of them had really dynamic Roblox experiences, and some of the other animated films that didn't perform as well. So that's, kind of some evidence or some proof of why this platform is so valuable as a marketing tool for the entertainment industry.
That's an incredible point right there. That is honestly an incredible point. And where do you think most brands go wrong when they are thinking about doing these brand activations in the entertainment space?
I just think in general, it's what I touched on earlier is that they don't understand the platform, they don't understand the community, and they have a little bit of arrogance where they're like, we're this cool brand, we're this great IP. All we have to do is just jump in these UGC platforms, just go on Roblox, just make a little thing, doesn't matter. We're so great, the kids are gonna love it. If you don't understand them and you don't know how to show up authentically in that space, it doesn't work. Either A, you don't get a lot of engagement, so you waste your money, or B, even worse, you upset the community. And they're like, this thing is super whack. This is a joke. Why am I here? This sucks, Then they turn on you, and then you're like, wow, now the Roblox community hates my brand, or they're not going to go see my movie because I showed up in a whack way. So, to answer your question, brands, they have to be smart in the way they activate. This is not like standard marketing where you can make a billboard and force people to see it, and it's probably going to work, right? Or like just do your best not to offend people. This is different. You have to organically integrate into the platform in a way that they're going to respond to. Like, you have to understand that. And if you don't have a dedicated person that understands UGC gaming and Roblox culture within your team, you need to hire studios like Sawhorse and my competitors to help get you in properly. Because if you show up incorrectly, it's super whack, and I don't recommend it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Nick, it's been absolutely class having you on, man. You've had some incredible points, and obviously your experiences there's a lot of experience that, loads of people don't already have, because obviously it's such a young space, but you obviously got the experience and the knowledge and the background to know what you're talking about and all that type of stuff. So Nick, it's been really good having you on. And what is next for you?
Well, thanks for having me on. This has been a great opportunity. I really enjoyed talking with you and meeting you, Stephen, and I think your podcast is great. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
And then as far as like what's next for me is we just need to continue to help these brands show up in these UGC platforms in a way that's going to be beneficial to them. So my challenge is constantly trying to learn more about these platforms, learn more about these game types, study everything that comes out, and do my best to help these brands be successful. So leveraging new technologies and trends and trying to build these interactive, immersive experiences. For me, I just really want to make great, engaging content that offers value to the users. This is like the future of marketing. How can you build an interactive, immersive commercial and place it somewhere where users actually want to go do that? Look at like when you're watching TV and the commercials come on, you're like, no, I don't love this. Or like you're driving down the freeway and you can't not see a billboard that's so big, and you're just like, you just saw it, whatever. It's intrusive. I'm really passionate about flipping that and being like, we built some amazing marketing tool, some experience that the users chose to go into. They got a ton of value from it. It was a win-win across the board, and the brand appears like a really cool thing. To me, I want to continue to develop that and push that as much as possible.
Nick, it's been absolutely having you on. I really appreciate you so much. Thank you for your time. And yeah, where can we find you?
People can hit me up on LinkedIn and just Nick Hill, or you could check out the Sawhorse website, which is just sawhorsela.com. Drop me a line. I'm always down to chat. And again, Stephen, thanks for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate it.